Hi, everybody, and welcome back to my Zero Carb Life. I am Kelly Hogan, and I'm joined by James Breakwell of Exploding Unicorn on Twitter, and he's also on Instagram. So, James, I have been reading a lot of your material lately, books. You have several Twitter account. I've examined all of your material. Not all. That's not true. A lot of your material, and I'm happy to report good news.
What's
You are
that?
really funny. And I'm sure I'm not the first person to tell you this, but I'm probably the first music teaching 11-year carnivore today to tell you that. Yes.
I by far, definitely in that specific category, you're the first person I've heard it from. So I definitely appreciate that. Thank you.
So the intro to your book says, I wrote down something here. I would have preferred that the entire book was narrative, but my life didn't generate enough interesting stories. I blame my parents for taking care of me. Everyone knows that the worst childhoods make for the best memoirs.
It's so true. I mean, I've read some amazing memoirs. It's like, I could never write anything like this. My life was too good. It's the misfortune of being fortunate, I guess.
Yes, I really did have a great childhood too, but legit, yours was pretty wholesome, decent.
I think so overall. There were some rough times early on, just like I think every family has as you get established and kind of work your way through. But by the time I was in high school, things were pretty well settled. So yeah, it was definitely good. I don't have any tell-all book to write about how I hate my parents, they disadvantaged me or anything like that, which is good because it makes for a much happier comedy book if you don't have to do all that stuff.
Yeah, I do think you're right. I think a lot of the funniest people usually are fairly traumatized beforehand.
Yes, definitely. So I don't. Yeah. So the adversity for a comedy writer is not being traumatized. I guess that's my burden to bear.
But you've managed to do both, not need therapy and be funny. That's probably unusual.
Yeah, Twitter is my therapy. That's how I work out. So on Twitter, I write jokes about my kids, quick back and forth conversations, things like that. And that's where I work out the frustration. The worse things are going at home, the more chaos there is right here, the more things I have to write about. So chaos is a good thing.
I know you have 4 daughters and
Yes.
I have 3 children, and our kids are similar in ages. And we can talk kids a little bit later, but mine are 10, 8, and 5.
Oh, our kids are exactly the same age. Mine are 10, 8, 6, and 5. So we just squeezed one extra one in there. But the first 3 were all born almost 2 years exactly apart. So they're about to have a triple birthday party. So then I will have 11, 9, and 7 if I can do math. I'm an English major, so counting up by one isn't always the easiest thing in the world for me.
You're doing well. So word on the street is, I have it on good authority, actually, from a carnivore friend of mine named Sarah Kleiner. She says, hey, the exploding unicorn guy? I was like, yeah, he's hilarious. She posts some of your memes sometimes, and I read them often. And she said, he's a carnivore, right? I was like, stop. No, he's not. She's like, yeah, he is. And I know that you have spoken with her. And have you already talked to Scott from Carnivore Cast?
No, that one's coming up next week, I think.
Okay. So it's true. You're a total carnivore.
Yes. And so online, people don't hear me talk about it. In real life, I talk about it way too much and people just want me to shut up. So it's kind of the two opposite ends of the spectrum. I don't have it in my bio or anything, but yeah, I switched to all meat like about 2 years ago, I think. I think every time I do one of these interviews, I give a different time frame. It's not like I wrote it down in my journal or anything. And because I don't tweet about it, it's like it doesn't exist. So I can't go and search it. But yeah, I switched over and there's no going back. I think I'm going to be this way for the rest of my life. It's just so much better than what I was doing before. And I definitely enjoy large piles of meat. Life is simple and I feel full. So I'm a big fan of that.
Oh, in fact, I have written down here something else you said. Just eat meat and everything else falls into place. It doesn't get any simpler than that. I was like, exactly. That's right. So I saw you on, it was a little keto, a very small podcast, but it was hilarious. It was you and just a few other guys.
Yeah.
I also heard you describe yourself as kind of cheap and lazy.
Yes, both true. Yes.
Same. I totally identify as a cheap and lazy carnivore. So have you found any ways that you personally have found to make carnivore cheap and easy?
My big tip is just to stock up on ground beef at the grocery store. So I just kind of monitor for when they do a sale, and like the magic mark, the cheapest I ever got is $1.99 a pound for 80/20 ground beef. And the last time it dropped to that, I bought approximately 400 pounds of it. I just filled my deep freeze downstairs. So I am good to go for a very long time. Steak is delicious, but I guess I'm just not that picky of an eater. It's not that much better than ground beef to justify paying like 10 times more. And also it takes a long time to eat. You got to really chew steak. Ground beef, it's like Jello. It just falls apart in your mouth. You can get that down right away. So yeah, I definitely eat ground beef burger patties, probably 3 to 4 pounds every day. I kind of oscillate back and forth with that. And that's my big money saving tip: ground beef all the way.
Yes, I've heard that you are not afraid of a McDonald's burger patty either.
Yes, I know that you are fond of that as well. And because I've been looking for tips, because for a while, when I would travel, I would have to bring like an electric skillet or just bring a frozen roll of meat to my friend's house, be like, hey, can you grill this for me? And I looked it up, and I guess McDonald's doesn't really add anything to their beef. It's just beef and salt and pepper, and that's it. And I'm like, all right, well, it's more expensive than doing it by myself, but I don't have to be the weird guy walking around with a frozen 3-pound log of beef. So it works out. You just go up there and I don't know if you do the quarter-pound patties or not, but that's what I do. There's a button they can push to add an extra quarter-pound patty to the burger. And I just ask them to hit that 12 times, and boom, you got 3 pounds of meat.
I don't even have them added to a burger. I just say every single day, pretty much, unless I know I'm going to have a steak that night, I'd like 8 quarter-pound beef patties, and they only charge me $1 per patty. So it's $8 a day, and I'm done.
Wow, that is you've gotten more efficient than me. And yeah, they don't put it on a burger. I had to like, I looked it up and I had them like that for like how to talk them through the spiel of like make sure they hit the button and stuff. But you've got them trained well enough that they just hit it and you go. So you do 2 pounds of meat a day then?
Yes, typically. I used to say 1.5 to 2 pounds, but it's been almost always 2 lately.
And then do you eat that all in one meal, or do you eat that in 2 meals?
I'm 2 meal a day. How about you?
I do 1 meal a day, which I like. I like just kind of being hungry all day, or not even usually that hungry, but I just kind of like being on an empty stomach. And then I like just filling up all at once and then going. And that's kind of the ultimate limiting factor too. That's what really brought me to carnivore, is at least on carnivore, I feel full then for the rest of the day and up through the morning, as opposed to before on the standard American diet. Like full was like an elusive concept. I would just never get there, not without consuming like 6,000 calories. So I'm a big fan of just dropping a big pound of meat in my stomach and being done, which sounds totally gross to other people, but if you do it for a while, it's such a simple way of life, and I'm definitely a fan.
Yeah, every once in a while I'll have an OMAD day, but I mean, well, if you're eating over 3 pounds of meat, though, I could do that. I really could.
Yeah, that's the thing. I would be a star at an all-you-can-eat buffet. Like back in the day when I do that, it's like, oh, you're going to charge me $8 for this. Well, I'm going to go eat $40 worth of food, even at like these crazy cafeteria food quality prices. I can definitely get my money's worth. And for a while there, I was lifting weights, and I thought, well, everybody says you got to bulk up. I worked my way up to 5 pounds of beef a day in 1 meal, and that was rough. Okay, I will not lie. After turning the corner on 4 pounds, when I got into pound number 5, that was not a pleasant experience. But I've since adjusted from that. I've realized there's no point eating that much. So depending on how active I am, I kind of rotate between 3 and 4 right now.
I know you're a track runner, because I just read a story about, oh my gosh, stealing of the gnomes.
Yes.
And that was hilarious. So I know you've always been sort of into fitness stuff, but were you just always into diet nutrition? How on earth did you come to say, I'm going to skip all other food groups and just eat meat?
I was the opposite of being into diet and nutrition. It used to enrage me when people would be in diet and nutrition. They'd give up pasta, they'd give up chocolate. And I thought that was a form of torture. Like growing up, I would eat half a tray of brownies for breakfast. I just burned everything that went in my body. And it wasn't even like, if you looked at how active I was, I mean, I ran cross country, but I really wasn't active enough to justify that level of calories. It was just, I was growing. And eventually when I got into college, partway through, just one day, abruptly, my metabolism stopped. And suddenly, in college, I had a meal plan. So I had an all-you-can-eat buffet 3 times a day. And all of a sudden, the weight just started piling on, even when I was, running all of these miles and miles. And it began a cycle where I would just periodically I'd gain all this weight, and then I would just starve myself, and I'd drop it, and I'd drop a bunch of muscle too. And then I'd go back to eating like I was, and I'd gradually build it up. And I kind of ended up timing it with my wife's pregnancies once I was out of college. So she would get pregnant, and I'm a terrible person, but she would get horrible morning sickness. So she would stop cooking, and she couldn't tolerate the smells of any food. And it's like, all right, well, this is a good time to go on a diet, I guess. And so I would lose weight as she would gain weight. And then I'd look really good for those pictures in the hospital where you're holding the newborn baby. And then I'd spend the next 2 years gaining all the weight back. And then we get another kid, and I'd repeat the process. It changed when I got Audible, actually. One of the free books I got was Good Calories, Bad Calories, 25-hour book. And I listened to it twice. And it's just like, it's such a cut and dry thing about how all these refined carbs and sugar are just terrible for you. They cause all these Western diseases. They cause weight gain. They all this stuff. But that book didn't explicitly endorse, eat red meat all the time. He said, these are the bad things that happen if you do this, but it didn't come right out and say, eat red meat. So I read a bunch of other books, and I eventually switched to keto, and I went that for about 9 months, and that was good. But I was eating like 2 pounds of chicken a day and a pound of broccoli or a pound of Brussels sprouts. And the weight this time, for the first time ever, it went off and stayed off, and I felt healthier, but I still had some health problems. So some digestive issues. I was still taking supplemental fiber. And I finally realized, like, why am I wasting stomach space on all these vegetables? Like, they're not, they're just empty filler to make me feel full. And chicken isn't as good as beef. I looked it up, and it's like, okay, ground beef has way more of what I need. And so I just switched. I was like, why don't I just eat, instead of eating 2 pounds of chicken and a pound of vegetables, why don't I just eat 3 pounds of beef? And I switched over to carnivore, and I was suddenly fuller. I could actually eat more than 3 pounds. I could eat, 4 pounds and be just fine. And it cleared up all of my digestive issues overnight. It turned out my problem wasn't that I was getting not enough fiber, because I was taking all these crazy fiber supplements and stuff. The problem was just fiber, period. And when I completely eliminated fiber from my diet, the problems fixed themselves overnight. And I was kind of blown away. And everybody, like, I think the carnivore community on Instagram had told me that was going to happen, but no doctor or no health professional had ever said anything like that. And I was like, okay, so clearly there's some medical knowledge out there that has not made it into the mainstream. So I switched to all meat, and I have not gone back ever since.
My gosh, that is fantastic to hear. I'm so used to hearing it only from people, you're used to hearing it from the people that are carnivores, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a carnivore. That's a carnivore. Of course they would say this, but I'm used to just admiring you for, your writing, your humor, and other things. I'm like, gracious, to hear somebody outside of the carnivore world say that is really cool.
I try to tell my friends too, some of them, they have this issue or that, or they have trouble with their weight, or they have trouble, one of them's gluten intolerant. I tell them it's, my diet's more restrictive than yours. He's trying to just, eat the regular foods, but just non-gluten versions. Like, just eat meat, just give it a try, 30 days, 60 days, and see what happens. And nobody wants to take that plunge. I'm just the worst evangelist for this cause ever. Apparently people see me and they just run the other way for that. So yeah, I have not pried pasta out of anybody's hands, but I'm here to tell you, you can eat all meat and not die, and you will be the healthiest you've ever been.
I do far better with people online. I guess it's because people are, more open-minded if they're in those spaces to start with. Whereas if I run into them in a teacher's lounge at school with the donuts, a less likely audience.
Well, yeah, and you've got the benefit too. You've been doing this for forever, right? You're one of the longest carnivores that I know of, and you're still here, and you're not dying. You don't have gout. Your kidneys didn't shut down. Like, you've proven that you can do this long term. I guess you could argue that, well, I've only been doing this for a couple of years. Maybe like health consequences are coming, but it's nice to look at people who've been doing this for a long time. But then you look at like tribes that did this, forever, entire cultures, Inuit cultures, the Maasai, all these people who eat, basically zero carb or almost zero carb. They eat all fat, all protein, and they do just fine without Western diets. And it's like, maybe we should give some credence to that. I mean, there's that study out of Israel just recently that said, humans for 2 million years were basically just apex predators. And it's kind of crazy to think that we're like, okay, we were carnivores for all this time, but now I'm a bad dad if I don't give my kids Pop-Tarts. Like, we've come the complete opposite direction. I mean, they give they do the standard American diet at school, and they're like, the other day for their healthy breakfast, they give them powdered donuts. Like, this is insane. And so I try, before they go there, I give them, scrambled eggs and bacon, and try to offer them the, the alternative. But then they go to school and they get that stuff anyway. So it's a never ending battle.
So other than just trying to not gain weight as your metabolism slowed a little bit, Was there any other reason for doing did you have health issues? You said your gut, you had some
Yeah. So I started having issues, and the doctor I went to one of those immediate care places because I was in my 20s and didn't actually have a primary care doctor. And they told me basically I needed to take fiber supplements and I needed to take mineral oil. And I needed to take, but in order for it to work, I had to take so much fiber. I was taking like 4 or 5 times the recommended daily dose. And I couldn't take a day off. Like if I was traveling, I had to take this bowl of powder with me. I looked like I was hauling cocaine, but I had to have it with me everywhere I went. And then I cut fiber from my diet completely, and it fixed it. But the bigger thing, I think, when I was listening to that good calorie, bad calorie thing. So I could always lose weight. I couldn't keep it off. When they talked about the health problems, the links between cancer and sugar, the links between Alzheimer's and all of these things, basically nothing good comes from refined carbohydrates and sugar, and nothing good comes from spiking your blood sugar levels. And when they looked at the demographics of, this is what happens in this society when we change their diet, it seemed pretty stark to me. And I didn't seem like anybody was really refuting all of the evidence there. So I think my biggest driver beyond even the weight loss was just long term. I don't want to be poisoning myself. It's like, why? And also, I think if it were different, if it's like, okay, you can eat one food for the rest of your life, and that food were kale, I would have walked away. It's like, I don't want those health benefits. But it's like, you can eat one food for the rest of your life and it's meat. It's like, sign me up. So you're telling me the most delicious food, the most filling food is also the healthiest food. Like, where is the downside? So that's why I signed up.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So I recently got an air fryer, and like all people who have ever gotten an air fryer, I can't stop talking about it. I know it's obnoxious, but you just open a drawer, and I've been just pouring just beef ribs into it. I just dump a pack of beef ribs into it. And then I open the drawer 17 minutes later, and there are perfect beef ribs in there. And I can eat beef ribs every single day. It's cheap. It is the most delicious thing I have ever eaten in my life. And I feel amazing. And I'm not like gaining weight, and my face isn't breaking out. I used to be on acne beds and stuff. So the fact that I get to eat the tastiest thing I have literally ever had every day and call this a diet, it's amazing, right?
Yeah, that's the crazy part. And people say you're on a diet. It's like, well, I'm not really on a diet. I'm eating more calories than I've ever eaten in my entire life. And I watch a lot of, fitness YouTube stuff and people who are doing bodybuilding and stuff. And they talk about just starving themselves to lose weight, to get cut. They're going down below like 2,000 calories. And I'm floating around, 3,000 calories plus every day without even trying. And, I get 3 pounds. If I eat just 3 pounds of meat and I don't put mayonnaise on it, I lose weight. My weight trends down. And if I want to stay even, I've got to add to that. And it's like, guys, you're making this so hard for yourself.
We could talk till we're blue in the face, but you're right. Until somebody just flat out try it. 30 days won't be enough to cure everything, right? I mean, there are things that take longer, but for the most part, most people that try it and give it a solid 30 days can at least feel something positive.
Yes. And you get really good at making meat. I know my wife, she doesn't give me many compliments. I got this one from her. She's like, I don't want to order steaks at restaurants anymore because yours are better. It's like, yeah, I got really good at cooking steaks because for a while there, I had a half a cow after a half a cow after a half a cow. And I learned precisely how long to do it. And it doesn't take much. You don't need some crazy special recipe. You don't need some crazy special rubs, salt and pepper, or sometimes even just salt and butter is enough to make that thing come out perfect. I'm a big fan of steak and ground beef. That's kind of my comfort zone. But I also I love eggs and I love bacon too. We've always got like 18 packs of eggs in the fridge. Now, do you do when you do eggs, do you do the farm fresh stuff or do you do the grocery store?
So we did have a guy who was just somebody from church that would drop off his homegrown home raised.
Yeah.
And that was great. But then he got rid of his chickens and I've just gone back to grocery store eggs. I preferred the taste of his.
Okay.
But it's not like I suddenly felt, we probably did that for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I didn't feel really any different for that 2 years of carnivore than I do just eating eggs. But I did kind of like the color and taste better.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing people get hung up on when you go carnivore. It's like, are you doing the absolute perfect form? Are you doing, factory farm eggs, or are you doing the farm fresh eggs? Are you doing grass-fed beef? Are you doing grain-fed beef? And that stuff, I think it's kind of minutia that doesn't matter so much. Like maybe if you want the absolute best possible benefit, you need to do all of those things. But like overall, if you just switch to meat, even just regular grass-fed meat from the grocery store, even just regular grass-fed eggs from the grocery store, you're going to get the health benefits and you're going to be much better off than you were before.
Yes, most of the people I know, 99.9% of all humans that I know in my day-to-day life are eating total crap. I mean, they're having pasta tonight, Pop-Tarts tomorrow morning. They're eating salads as often as possible, trying to lose weight. That is what most people are doing. So when I hear carnivores who have already like cured so many things, they're feeling amazing, nitpicking one another over whether or not to use salt. I'm like, oh my gosh, have y'all met any non-carnivores lately? They're killing themselves every day.
They are. And it's just, and that's what I don't miss. It was just such a battle. I mean, before, when I would, every time I did my, oh, I guess I need to lose all this weight right away thing, I'd be down below 2,000 calories. And I can't even imagine that now. That's a starvation level for me. And it's like, but people are out there doing this all the time. They're doing this, especially, I do a lot of weightlifting. People talk about bulk and cut and all of that. It's like you are making yourself miserable. And so people think carnivore is restrictive, but really what it's restricting you from is just all of the discomfort and all of the agony of the other diet.
Yes, I restricted myself so much more before carnivore. Only the restrictions didn't work for long. I was like you, I could lose weight, and I did a few times in my life, but it was always very brief, and it came right back and usually brought more weight with it. It was
Yes.
exhausting.
And that was the thing. Like once it's like, okay, some people can do a little bit of things and I can't. It's like, okay, I'm not going to eat one piece of candy. If I'm going to eat one piece of candy, I'm going to eat 40 pieces of candy, but I can do no pieces of candy. I have no problem eating zero candy, but if I eat one piece of candy, it's not going to stop at one. And it was like that with pasta. If I'm going to eat pasta, I'm going to eat my plate of pasta, and then my kids don't finish their pasta. So I'm going to finish all of their pasta, which was very bad news by the time I had 4 kids. I'm finishing everybody's plate. But it's just, you start eating, it tastes good, and by the time your brain gets those hunger signals turned off, I'd eaten the entire meal. So yeah, I couldn't do a little bit. And I guess some people are like that with alcohol. I don't have a problem with alcohol because alcohol tastes bad, and so that's kind of my control right there. But with carbs and sugar, yeah, I definitely couldn't do a little bit. It was all or nothing for me, and nothing is definitely much better for me.
The first time I heard Keto Mary 71, she's been keto like years, and now mostly carnivore. The first time I heard her say she is an abstainer and not a moderator, I was like, oh yeah, that's me. Okay. There it is. I can't moderate whatsoever, but I can definitely abstain. So much easier.
Yeah, and I have, I'm trying to gradually transition my kids to a healthier diet because I felt bad. It's like, okay, I've optimized my diet. I'm healthier and fitter than I've been in my entire life, even though I'm in my mid 30s now. And then I look and I'm like, oh, I'm still giving my kids garbage. Like, what kind of parent am I? So I'm just slowly trying to transition them over. But we've still got, candy in the house. We've still got stuff we stocked up from Halloween and all of this. I don't like ban it outright, just try to kind of discourage it or limit it. But I know some people have problems. It's like, if there's candy in the house, they're going to eat it. I don't have that problem. It's like, as long as I know I'm going to be full on ground beef, I don't need to dabble with the candy, because I know dabbling with the candy is going to mean they don't have any candy left. And then I got to make up a lie about the candy thief sneaking into the house.
Yeah. So these days, is there anything left that you're still wanting to resolve? Are you just feeling quite optimal? Any more results you're hoping to get?
No, actually, at this point, I'm just trying to slowly build muscle over time, and just kind of stay like this. I'm going to try to get back into running more. I did that for a number of years, and then I got old and fat and stopped. But now my kids are getting to the age where they're getting into cross country, so I'm going to try to help coach with their teams and do that. But yeah, this is something I don't like it when people call like the carnivore a diet, because it's really not a diet. It's a lifestyle. Like this isn't something I'm doing for 6 weeks to break some weight plateau. My weight's been pretty stable for a long time. This is something I do just because it makes me healthier overall. And I know people say that it's like, oh, well, if you're doing carnivore, carnivore, you're going to run out of energy, you're going to run out of electrolytes, all of that. So I eat my one meal a day at about, 5:30, 6 o'clock every day. And the next day I'm in the gym at 5 a.m. for 2 hours. And then I've got a martial arts class at night. I do a rowing machine. I do all sorts of other stuff afterwards. And I haven't run out of energy left yet. It's like, you don't need that quick burst of glucose to get through the day. I mean, your body can process the fat and protein just fine.
So let's talk about just a few things people will probably want to know, because you seem to be really thriving. You look well, man.
Well, thank you.
Organ meat.
So when I got the half a cow, I did the liver thing. I don't think I did it right. I think if you cook the liver too much, it loses all the benefits. So I cooked the liver, I salted it up, and it was okay. And then after that, I haven't done liver in months, and I don't notice any different. I read recently that that the one thing beef doesn't get you is magnesium. So I got some magnesium pills to try it out, and I take a couple magnesium pills. I've been doing that for a couple weeks, and I don't feel any difference at all. So I think when these magnesium pills are done, I'm just going to go back to salted beef and just stick with that.
Yeah, I tried the magnesium thing for a while too. I felt nothing.
Okay, so it's not just me then.
I also tried the organ meat thing for a solid month every day. I ate
Really?
organ meats, mostly liver, because that's
Mhm.
I ate heart too, and I think that was probably okay, but mostly liver every day, and I actually felt worse.
Really? Well, did you cook it, or did you eat it raw or
I did
undercooked?
both. I
Did
ate
you
quite a bit
really?
raw and
Wow.
some cooked.
I was not brave enough to do any meat raw, although my wife thinks my burgers are raw because they're definitely pinker than what she likes. But she likes them like hockey pucks. But yeah, I didn't feel any difference either. When I was thinking about whether or not to do organ meats long term, I looked at the example of you because I knew you didn't do them, and it's like, well, she's not dying. It can't be that bad. So and I think Sean Baker too, the major carnivore doctor, he never does organ meats, and he seems just fine. I mean, I would love it if in my 50s I was as fit as him. So if he can get by without him, I'm thinking it's probably not necessary.
Yeah, actually, I interviewed a bunch of 10-plus-year carnivores.
Okay.
None of them regularly eat liver or any other organ meat. Now, one of them, Amber O'Hearn, who is flipping brilliant, she says that every once in a while she'll get a craving for liver. And when she eats it, it's really good for a day or two, and then it's disgusting to her. She really has written quite a bit about the fact that it might be vitamin A toxicity, that sometimes your body might actually need that little kick of vitamin A. And so
Okay.
it's kind of good to you, but that then your body knows when it starts tasting nasty, and it always tastes gross to me. Every time I've tried it, I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm not a picky eater. Like I
Mhm.
said, I choked it down. I ate raw beef heart, and it was quite delicious. I'm not picky, but the liver tasted insanely bad to me, and I started feeling worse and worse every day. And Amber says she thinks it's vitamin A toxicity. Judy Cho just did a post how she thinks it's possible to get
Mhm.
vitamin A overload from eating liver, because a lot of people say, oh, gotta have that liver every day.
Mhm.
But the long-time carnivores really aren't doing that. So
You,
you're in good company.
you are so much braver than I am on all that raw meat. I mean, did you watch Game of Thrones?
No.
That was one of the things, the lady who becomes queen of the horse rider barbarians, she has to go and eat a horse heart, and it just sounds like the most horrific thing. And here you are like, for health reasons, I'll eat a raw heart, we'll see what it's like. I made heart jerky. That was as far as I went, and I would rate it as okay, a little on the chewy side. And after that, I never got a heart again. The next time I told them, just keep the heart. I don't need that part of it.
I have had beef heart jerky, and I actually preferred it raw. Raw, it tasted like a
Really?
rare steak. Something
Huh.
about it cooked, I did not love it either. And dehydrated, it was not as bad as I've had liver jerky.
Mhm.
Oh gosh, it was like the most potent form of liver, which I've already explained. I really hate that taste.
So do you do dairy then or not?
I have times on and off. My first probably 2 years of carnivore, I did not touch any dairy. And then I've had years, several years, in fact, in the middle where I did. Currently, I hardly ever eat cheese. For Lent, almost every year, I do 40 days without any dairy.
Okay.
So, I mean, and I've compared. People say, oh, how does your weight change? It doesn't. I feel nothing except only about two things change. My skin gets a little more broken out when I eat more dairy. I can't stop thinking about dairy when I eat more dairy. And I get a little bit of a drippy nose in the mornings. So it's not dramatic. It's not like I suddenly balloon up. I just can't stop thinking about it and don't feel quite as good. How about you? Do you do dairy?
I go back and forth on it as well. So sometimes I do pepper jack cheese on my burgers, and sometimes I don't. Right now, I'm in no pepper jack cheese phase, and I don't. I think cheese makes me balloon up more than anything else. I think I can add meat and not have any effect, but adding cheese, I think my body processes it differently. But it's so good. But I'm definitely not on the no spice end of the spectrum. So I use hot sauce and mustard for most things, and then sometimes I'll have the pepper jack cheese on there, and sometimes I won't. I am curious about something though. I heard you mention Lent in there. Are you Catholic by chance?
Well, my husband's Episcopalian. I grew up Baptist. He started off Catholic and then became Episcopalian as a teenager, which was sort of like the in-between for the two of us, where Catholic and Baptist meet are the Episcopals.
Gotcha. So do you do meatless Fridays during Lent?
We don't.
You don't. Well, I do not either. My wife gives me a hard time about that. It's like, there's only one thing in this world I eat. I'm not giving this up. Yeah. I don't care for fish particularly. I mean, I've done it in the past in limited quantities before I went carnivore, but it just seems like a sad imitation of real meat. It's always disappointing. I just can't bring myself to do it. It's like, I think God will understand. I have to have my beef. He created this delicious food and put it down here. He doesn't want me not to eat it.
I feel the same way. I do have fish as a side once in a while. I kind of enjoy a slightly different flavor, but my gosh, if you were doing an OMAD of fish, how many fish would have to die, dude? That's a lot of fish.
I don't even want to think about it. And each one not that great to begin with. I guess maybe I could do shrimp. I could do a big pile of shrimp, I guess. You got to really cover those things in butter though, because they're kind of tasteless. So yeah, I definitely still eat my 3 pounds of beef on meatless Fridays. That'll be our secret between me, you, and all our podcast listeners. Okay.
I do too. The Episcopalians don't really do meatless Friday though. They're so much more softcore Catholic than the Catholics.
Well, they went soft on the right side of it, I think. They picked the right area to cut the corners.
All right, this is not about carnivore, but I read your story about how you took a photo of your child in the back seat.
Oh.
Wearing a puffy coat. Oh gosh. If you buy his book, was that in the new book?
Yeah, it's in the new book.
And it'll be linked below. I'll link all of your books. But if you buy his book for no other reason, this story is hilarious. So you put your child in the back seat and you're taking a cute little picture and you post it. But he made everybody, you'll know immediately, his child was wearing a puffy coat. Moment of silence. I know that every internet mom out there is gasping in horror because we know we are all, as parents, allowed to make mistakes in every walk of life. Everything we do, you're allowed a mistake, except for this. When you take a picture of a child in a car seat, there is no grace given. It must be chest strap. The child cannot be asleep. You better never take a picture of your child asleep in a car. They have to be sitting straight up, wide awake, with very thin clothing. There's no grace on the internet for this, right?
Yeah, they jumped in. They definitely thought they were saving my children's lives. I mean, for the record, half my kids are out of car seats now. They're still alive. So I think I have some very different views on car seats than the general public. But man, yeah, I didn't. Everyone, I've been on the internet a long time. I put a lot about my family on there. And so every once in a while there's backlash and it just catches me off guard. Because it's not like I'm out there, talking about politics or religion or anything else. I mean, these are just family friendly posts and jokes about my kids, and boom, when you out of nowhere get the pack on you, it's like, holy cow, I did not see that coming. And that time I made the mistake of like, okay guys, I hear you, it's cool, I don't care. That is the wrong thing to say to a pack of fired up moms trying to save your children's lives. I have never to this day faced backlash to that level. Months later, people who I had blocked on Facebook contacted me on Instagram to keep yelling at me. It was incredible.
So I was thinking about that and the internet backlash, and I thought, have I gotten anything quite that bad? The worst backlash I've ever gotten was just about carnivore. Have you gotten any heat off of this, or are you just now, is the cat just coming out of the bag?
Yeah. So this book tour right now is the first time I've really talked about it extensively online. But see, people don't care if I die. So it's like, oh, you're eating all meat. Your kidneys are going to shut down. We don't care, whatever. They don't know that I'm, trying to transition my kids in that direction. But it's not like I'm making my kids eat all ground beef. They still eat, fruits and vegetables or whatever ones I get. I'm just trying to get them less refined, carbs and sugar. And nobody, if you say you're trying to get your kids to eat less sugar, nobody gets too fired up about that. Now, if they found out I'm replacing sugar with bacon, yeah, maybe they might be a little alarmed. But, in my mind, I think the science is on my side that that's a step in the right direction. If I can just kind of get in their heads, just at this early age, that meat is healthy and not the thing you need to be avoiding. It's all the other stuff. Like, that's probably the most important lesson I can teach them. And they now associate meat with health. But the thing is, they're small children and they really just don't care about health.
But when they get older and do care about health, they will have this. They're going to have this knowledge.
That is my goal, because it's just such a shocking and counterintuitive thing. And you've kind of got to go down the rabbit hole to find it. Because even when I was, reading all this stuff about how bad refined carbs and sugar were and how they're linked to all these things, most of those authors wouldn't take that final step and say, eat meat, eat all the meat. Because a lot of those same people will still say, well, red meat causes cancer. And if you look at the studies, it really doesn't. There's no connection for all these things. Or like saw somebody the other day, there's so many articles of people who they go keto and they stop. And the lady said one of the reasons she stopped is her LDL cholesterol shot up. And it's like, there's no connection between LDL and heart attacks. It's triglycerides and all these other markers you have to look for. So she was on the healthy path. She lost 70 pounds and then she abandoned it because of, bad medical information that her doctor of all people had. It's like, if I can just teach my kids to avoid those, those missteps, then they can make a decision for themselves and they at least won't be blindfolded. Because I was so confused for so many years. Like, why do I feel so terrible? Why am I having all these issues? Why is it so easy to gain weight and so hard to lose it? And all of those things just reverse themselves when I just switched to meat.
Yes, man, you are awesome. I just love you, man.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's always good to get a warm reception. And I definitely thank you for having me on here. I know I'm probably not your usual caliber of guest, but as I was going out to promote this book, I thought, I listened to all these people on all these carnivore podcasts. I wonder if they'll let me come on there and talk. And so I definitely appreciate you taking a risk on me.
Typically, the people who come on the channel are like known carnivores.
Mm-hmm.
We expect everything that they say, which is great. A carnivore MD is always welcome here.
Yes.
But then when there's somebody, like I said, that's outside the community, but well known and is known for being a funny, likable person who says, oh, and by the way, I'm an author and also I happen to eat only meat. That is awesome. I love that. I think I love it even more because I think most of us, I'm a music teacher. I'm not a doctor of anything. I'm living a life. I have kids. It's real life. And I also happen to only eat meat. I think it's good for people to see that it doesn't have to become your entire life. Every cartoon you draw is not about meat, but could you make a few? Just come on. Just a few.
You know what? It's a tough sell because bacon's a good punchline of, oh, I'm eating the bacon, I'm going to die. There goes my cholesterol. I've made those comics over the years. And you switch it up and you're like, all right, I'm eating bacon, I'm going to live forever. And people are like, what? It's just
do it. Let's do it. Normalize the bacon. James, thank you so much for coming on the show. And I look forward to following all of your funny things and finishing your book. I just got my hands on it this week. And I'm only a few stories in, but I've laughed at every single one. So you guys have to find out why he almost got arrested, and it has to do with garden gnomes. Why he owns 2 pigs, and it's not for food. And the puffy coat story. Go get the book, if only for those 3.
And that I don't, I'm terrible at promoting my own books. We've gone through this entire podcast. I haven't even said the name of it. It's How to Be a Man, whatever that means. Lessons in modern masculinity from a questionable source. But this guy is struggling with very bad form to do a deadlift on there, and that's coming out in June.
Awesome, and you guys get it. You will love it. And I'm only a few chapters in, but I'm enjoying it. Thank you, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks, James.
All right, thank you.